Hey folks, welcome back to Canada's Boxing Channel. So yesterday I had a lot of fun making fun of Big John Fury, but today I want to talk about something that's a lot more relevant and much more serious, and that's the issue of what are commonly called rehydration clauses in boxing contracts. And before we get into what they are and the arguments for and against, let's back up the bus a little bit and remember that for many years, and certainly most of my life, certainly most of my life as a fan, there was no such thing. Boxers usually fought at their fighting weight, and they weighed in on the morning of the day of the fight. So if we stick to, say, the 175-pound weight limit, which is the weight limit for light heavyweight fights, a fit, well-trained fighter, that was his boxing weight. And, they'd make weight in the morning, and then they'd carry on with the rest of their day, bit of training, bit of eating, bit of resting, and they'd fight in the evening. Now, what happened over the years is people sort of try to cross over weight classes. And sometime around, say, the 2010s, and this is coincidental with the advent of kind of sophisticated diet pills and diuretics and stuff like that, they started to be concerned that a natural 200-pounder would boil themselves down to 175. And then, especially as it became popular to weigh in the day before a fight, they would re-eat and re-drink and rehydrate, and they would enter the ring at their natural sort of 200-pound athleticism. And that sort of put them at an unfair advantage over your natural 175er. So these clauses were introduced in a boxing contract that would limit the amount of weight a person could gain between the time they weighed in at the official weigh-in and the time they enter the ring. So let's sticking with our 175 limits and our natural 200-pounder. In order to negate the perceived advantage that natural 200-pounder would have, they introduce a contract that says, okay, well, within this contract, this clause about rehydration will limit you to, say, a 10-pound weight gain between the time you weigh in and the time you fight. So your natural 200-pounder boils himself down to 175 and then is contractually limited as to how much weight he can gain. So he enters the ring at, say, a maximum of 185. And this is thought to provide a degree of safety for your naturally smaller man who, honestly, weighs 175 soaking wet. On its face, that sounds kind of sensible. Okay, I'm not going to see a 25-pound weight difference in an individual. I'm going to see at the most like a 10-pound weight difference. The problem, of course, is that people can artificially boil themselves down to a certain weight. In this example, it's 175. And if they're limited by a rehydration clause to 185, they're still entering the ring dehydrated and artificially light. This causes problems. People can be physically weakened, their punch resistance can be affected, and even cognitively they can be affected. And so you've got a person who's actually unwell at an artificially low weight fighting against somebody who's fighting at their ideal fighting weight. And this has come up recently in the proposed fight between Chris Eubank Jr. and Conor Benn. And people are saying, well, this could be quite dangerous for Chris Eubank. Now, Personally, I'm not so concerned with superstars who are making massive amounts of money, but I am concerned that, much less famous or much less well-paid fighters are getting caught with these rehydration clauses. So I think there's an argument to be said for scrapping them. And I'm not saying that you scrap them and don't do anything else, because I think it's unsafe for somebody to boil themselves down to become like abnormally light and then pack back on the beef so they come in as sort of a cruiserweight fighting against a light heavyweight. I think the answer is to take a step backwards and to look for weigh-ins on the same day. But surely the bigger picture has to be people should stay in their own lanes. If your fighting weight is, say, 200 pounds, you're a cruiserweight, right? You're not a light heavyweight, you're not a super middleweight, you're a cruiserweight. And so I think that promoters, managers, and the boxers themselves should remember that weight classes exist for a reason. If you struggle to make a certain weight and you've had to fast for several days or you've had to take pills in order to make a weight, well, that weight class isn't for you anymore. I mean, when I was a young man, I could easily weigh in at sort of high 170s. Now, I weigh, 190 something, and I couldn't, get super skinny again. I think most of us recognize this. And I think it's bad for athletes when they are, basically starving themselves to make an artificial weight. So what do you think? Do you think that there's a safety issue with respect to these rehydration clauses? Do you think that they should be scrapped? Or do you think that, hey, if you're willing to sign your name on the bottom of a piece of paper, that's up to you? Like I say, personally, I think they're unhealthy in the big picture for an athlete to be doing that. And I think that they're dangerous because you can have somebody who's boxing when they've made themselves unfit by artificially competing in a weight class that they really shouldn't be competing in. That's my view. I'd like to know yours. It's like I say, it's a polarizing issue, and it's one of those interesting issues where the arguments for and against are both based in safety of the fighters. So I look forward to reading your comments. If you've enjoyed this video, please hit like, please subscribe, and please share. So wherever you are in the world today, have an awesome day. I'm off to move more snow. See ya. Bye-bye.